There's a generation hiding in plain sight. Not the boomers who turned every house they touched into a gold mine. Not the millennials blamed for killing everything, from department stores to mayonnaise. Not Gen Z with their algorithmic side hustles and crypto portfolios. There's a quieter cohort sitting right in the middle, Generation X, born between 1965 and 1980, and their relationship with money is unlike anything behavioral economists have seen before. Your coworker who has quietly built a net worth that would make a millennial weep, but still drives a car with 180,000 miles on it. The person who drops $800 on concert tickets without blinking, then clips digital coupons for the grocery run the next morning. They look contradictory. They look irrational, but they're not. And once you understand what happened to them, every single financial decision they make becomes the most logical thing in the world. It starts with a memory most of them carry without even realizing it. Somewhere in the early 1980s, a 10-year-old watches their father walk into a bank. Same branch, same teller, same dependable paycheck from the same employer he's had for over a decade. There's a pension waiting at the end. There's a mortgage ticking down on schedule. There's a savings account that actually pays interest worth mentioning. The formula is simple and it works: show up, stay loyal, retire comfortably. That child grows up believing the formula. Then 2008 arrives. They're in their mid-30s now. They followed the rules. They did exactly what they were told. And they watch their 401k lose half its value in months. They watch home prices collapse underneath mortgages they took out in good faith. They watch colleagues with 20 years of institutional loyalty get handed a cardboard box and a form letter. The formula didn't just fail. It was exposed as something that was never fully real to begin with. And that specific species of betrayal, not failure, betrayal rewired how this entire generation thinks. About every dollar they earn, spend, save, or borrow. Psychologists have a name for what Gen X developed. In response, defensive pessimism. You assume the system will eventually fail you, so you build as though it already has. The 2023 Transamerica Retirement Studies found that 70% of Gen X report significant anxiety about whether they'll be able to retire at all. Yet they also post some of the highest 401k contribution rates of any living generation. They don't believe it's going to work. They fund it anyway, because the alternative, trusting that things will just be fine, is a luxury they watched their parents lose. This same psychology explains something Gen X pioneered, long before it had a fashionable name: the side hustle. Federal Reserve data shows Gen X holds higher rates of self-employment and secondary income streams than either boomers or millennials. But here's the critical distinction: most of them kept their day jobs. This was never about passion projects or escaping the 9-to-5 on a vision board. It was about watching a colleague who'd given 2 decades to a company get terminated on a Tuesday afternoon with no warning. That image doesn't leave you. It becomes policy. You keep the primary income, yes, but you also quietly build a rental property, a consulting arrangement, a small business on the side. Not ambition, insurance. Now here's the behavior that confuses marketers most. Gen X will spend serious money on experiences. Concerts, travel, live events, in amounts that outpace every other generation in actual dollars spent. But hand them a catalog of new furniture or the latest consumer gadget, and they'll pass. This looks like inconsistency. It's actually the most coherent investment logic you'll find anywhere in consumer psychology. They learned firsthand that physical assets lie to you. A house can go underwater. A car depreciates the moment you leave the lot. A portfolio can be cut in half before breakfast. But the weekend they spent seeing a band they loved in 1994, the trip they took before everything changed, those can't be foreclosed on. They can't be repossessed. No market correction touches them. Gen X didn't accidentally stumble into experience spending. They reasoned their way there after watching material wealth evaporate in real time. Their approach to debt follows the same control logic. Experian data shows Gen X carries the highest total debt load of any generation. But the composition of that debt reveals everything. They'll take on a $400,000 mortgage without much hesitation. They'll refuse to carry a $2,000 credit card balance. The difference isn't the amount, it's the architecture. A mortgage is a fixed payment, a defined timeline, a known endpoint. You can map it. Credit card debt is entropic, it compounds in the dark. It has no natural ceiling, and they watched it quietly. Hollow out household after household throughout the 80s and 90s. They don't fear debt, they fear debt they can't fully see. And then there's the detail that always gets laughed at until you think about it. AARP research found that 61% of Gen X maintains physical files of important documents. Paper statements, printed records, fireproof boxes. People assume this is technophobia, but Gen X built the internet. They were the first generation to live professionally inside digital systems. They just also remember when those systems crashed, when companies lost records, when a digital promise turned out to be worth exactly what it was stored on. So they use the app, yes, and they keep the paper copy, not because they distrust technology, because they've already lived through enough system failures to know that redundancy isn't paranoia, it's just engineering. Here's what all of it adds up to. Generation X is not a generation of contradictions. They're a generation of adaptations, precise, deliberate responses to an economy that made them a specific promise in childhood and broke it with surgical precision in adulthood. They save obsessively because they know the floor can drop. They spend on experiences because those are the only assets the system genuinely cannot take back. They build secondary income streams because single points of failure are for people who haven't been burned yet. They keep paper records because they've seen what happens. When the backup doesn't exist, they're not confused about money. They're the only generation that fully understood what money actually is. Not a reward for following the rules, but a buffer against the moment the rules stop applying. And if that sounds exhausting, it's because it is. But it's also kept them standing.